Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the material you share with us, jump right in, and see what insights we can pull out. And today, we're looking at something really quite dynamic, maybe even surprising. A big shift happening right now in the Indian film world.
Yeah, it really feels like a pivotal moment. You've got Bollywood, the legendary Mumbai dream factory facing some real headwinds.
Right.
And then on the other side, you have the cinemas from South India to Telugu, Tamil, Canada, Malayalam is just absolutely taking off, not just in their regions, but nationally. It's quite something.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. Try and understand why. What are the numbers telling us about Bollywood's current struggles? What's happening creatively in both spaces? And maybe most importantly, how is that connection with the audience changing? Or, maybe being missed?
We've been through a lot of material you sent over, and it paints a really vivid picture. And, one image that stuck with me right away was just picturing an empty movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
All those seats, the big screen, ready for a major release, but the crowds just aren't there for some of these big Bollywood films lately. It kind of captures the whole thing, doesn't it?
It really does. And it's not just a feeling, is it? The data we looked at, it backs that up completely.
Absolutely.
So we're going to unpack those numbers, look at the creative issues, the structural things maybe holding Bollywood back,
Right.
see what's driving the success in the South, and really try to figure out where that audience connection is hitting or maybe missing the mark. Should be pretty interesting.
Definitely. So, okay, let's start with Bollywood's current situation, looking at those numbers.
Yeah.
Because, well, the picture isn't exactly rosy, is it?
No, and it's hard to argue with the figures. Nationwide theater attendance. Wow.
Yeah.
It's fallen off a cliff. We saw numbers suggesting it went from, 1.6 billion people in 2018?
Yeah, something like that.
Down to a projection of just 0.8 billion for 2025.
That's literally half. Half the audience just gone in a few years.
Exactly. And think about the economic shockwaves from that. For an industry that size.
Oh, absolutely. And that drop in audience, well, it hits the money directly, doesn't it? Investment just seems to be, drying up.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the size it employs over 2 million people. So when the money gets tight like that, you can really sense the struggle, just, trying to keep things moving.
We saw some really specific film examples that just hammer this home, like Housefull 5, just out June 6th. Huge reported budget, apparently.
Right.
But the opening, really weak. Ours 24 crore for the weekend, that's only about, $2.9 million?
Wow. For a film like that?
Yeah. And it only scraped together ours 54 crore total in 2 days.
And the word of mouth must have been rough.
Oh, it was brutal online. People calling it a cringe disaster, using that Hindi word, wahiya.
Utter nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. Even the trailer views were low for what you'd expect, 8 million in 21 hours. Just didn't seem to generate any buzz.
It really shows that disconnect, doesn't it, between the money spent and how people actually react.
And it wasn't just that one film. Sikandar, the big Salman Khan action flick,
Right.
reported Rs 200 crore budget box office. Around Rs 26 crore.
Ouch. That's a huge miss.
An emergency. With Kangana Ranaut as Indira Gandhi. Despite talk about her performance, it just didn't click in theaters. Collapsed at about Rs 18.4 crore.
It's like even big names aren't enough anymore. We saw Amitabh Bachchan was promoting Housefull 5 on Instagram.
Right, a legend like him.
And it apparently didn't move the needle at all.
Now, put those numbers next to what's happening with films from the South. Even just looking at the Hindi versions.
It's a different world.
Totally. Kalki 2898 AD, that sci-fi epic.
Yeah.
Rs 550 crore just in Hindi.
Incredible.
And Pushpa 2 was over Rs 889 crore and apparently still going strong.
The contrast is just, staggering.
It really shows people are willing to go to the cinema, right? They're just being very, very selective.
Absolutely. And we even saw those whispers about some producers maybe trying to, inflate ticket sales numbers.
Well, really?
Just to make things look better, which if that's happening, it tells you how deep the problem might be.
Wow. Okay, so the numbers paint a pretty clear picture of a slump. But why? What's driving this? It feels like more than just a few bad movies.
Yeah, it definitely points to deeper issues creatively and structurally. That's a major theme that came through.
Like what specifically?
Well, one thing is this feeling of maybe over-reliance on the same old formulas, recycling the same kind of elements.
You mean like the action comedies, the same few star families and directors?
Exactly. That and just the sheer number of sequels, Dabangg 7, Housefull 5. It feels like audiences are maybe just a bit tired of it.
Yeah, the excitement just isn't there anymore. The magic feels faded, maybe.
It seems like it. Even the biggest names, the Khans, they've hit bumps.
Yeah.
Shah Rukh Khan had Pathaan in 2023, which was massive.
Huge hit.
But 2024 was apparently pretty quiet for him, fewer releases, some ad controversy.
Right. And Salman's Sikandar, as we said, flopped. Amir Khan's Lal Singh Chadha in 2022 also didn't do well at the box office.
And what's really telling is that some of these huge stars are now apparently actively looking to work with South Indian directors.
Oh, interesting. Seeking that success elsewhere.
It suggests they see something happening outside their usual circle, doesn't it? Like they recognize where the energy is right now.
Yeah. And Akshay Kumar, too, the Kalki. He's had a whole string of films, Skyforce, Kesari 2, Housefull 5, that haven't even broken our 100 crore.
It feels like his particular brand, that formula, just isn't connecting like it used to.
It's not just the male leads either. Deepika Padukone, her big recent success was Kalki 2898 AD, a South production.
Right.
Her solo Bollywood films, like Chapak a few years back, didn't have nearly the same box office impact.
And even Ranbir Kapoor, he had Animal, which was colossal over Rs 550 crore.
Monster hit.
But he couldn't carry that momentum. Shamshera in 2022 flopped. And there was another recent one, apparently a Rs 400 crore film with Madhuri Dixit, barely made a ripple.
So if the star power isn't the guaranteed draw it once was, what's happening behind the scenes, structurally?
Well, a huge factor highlighted was the financial structure around the stars themselves. Apparently, the biggest names can demand an enormous chunk, some sources said, up to 80% of the entire film budget.
80%. Just for the star.
That's what was reported, and it's paid up front.
Wow. So what does that leave for? Everything else.
Exactly. That's the crippling part. If most of the money goes to the star before they even roll cameras properly, there's very little left for, good writing, visual effects, production quality, the actual movie making.
Someone in the sources compared it to a character in a Russian novel who grabs everything, but then just collapses under the weight.
That's a good analogy. The film itself gets starved, and it was contrasted with Hollywood's old gross points system, where stars got a percentage of the revenue.
So their success was tied to the film's success.
Right. But this mention of Bollywood's net point system, where stars might get paid only if the film becomes net profitable, which is harder with those huge upfront fees, it often leaves the producers holding the bag, even if the film does okay initially.
Which just leads to more underfunded films, maybe. A cycle.
It seems like it could, yeah. Films that maybe lack the depth or polish to really connect.
Okay, so while Bollywood is dealing with all that, South Indian cinema, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, it's a totally different story, right? It's booming.
Absolutely booming. Not just surviving, thriving nationally. We talked about Pushpa 2 from the Telugu industry.
Right, nearly Rs 900 crore.
And doing incredibly well in Hindi markets, too. And Kalki 2898 AD, that amazing sci-fi epic mixing mythology and future tech.
Yeah, Rs 550 crore, just from the Hindi version.
These aren't just movies. They feel like huge cultural events people are excited about.
So what are they doing differently? What's the secret sauce?
Well, one big thing seems to be a willingness to actually take creative risks, to tell bolder, more original stories instead of just sticking to safe formulas.
Like the Pushpa example you mentioned earlier, the whole village loser smuggling redwood idea.
Exactly. That kind of pitch, you could see it being shot down in a boardroom looking for a guaranteed pan-India hit. But they went for it, leaned into its uniqueness, and look what happened.
Became a massive franchise.
Yeah. It feels like South filmmakers might have a better pulse on what diverse audiences across India actually want to see. Stories that feel, well, authentic, rooted in something real, not just cooked up in an urban boardroom.
And the filmmaking process itself sounds maybe more agile.
Yeah, there were mentions of directors pitching directly to maybe one producer or even the main actor. If the idea sparks, it gets a green light quickly.
Less bureaucracy, maybe.
Seems like it. Less getting bogged down in committees, more driven by a clear creative vision getting backed, which probably helps keep original ideas intact.
And you can't ignore the spectacle in some of these films.
Yeah.
RRR, KGF, Chapter 2. They deliver big time on action and emotion.
Oh, definitely. The scale is incredible. It makes some of the Bollywood attempts at spectacle feel a bit derivative, maybe.
Less
impactful.
But it's not just about the big budgets, is it?
No.
Because Malayalam cinema...
Right. That's a crucial point. Bollywood's had huge successes with smaller budget films recently. Things like Marco, Premaloom, and Jamal Boys.
Which shows what? That story is still king.
Absolutely. Compelling, authentic storytelling connects, regardless of the price tag. Scale helps, but it's not the only thing.
And that really highlights the contrast with something like Bollywood Singham. Again, big stars, tried the mythology angle like Kalki.
Yeah, but apparently it just felt forced, clunky. Audiences found it irritating, it seems, and it flopped.
Which kind of brings us back to that core issue, doesn't it? The audience disconnect.
It really feels central. The sense is that Bollywood often seems maybe out of touch with a big chunk of its potential audience.
How so? Like aiming too much at an urban elite.
That seems to be the perception. Stories that feel disconnected from the lives, the dreams, the cultures of people in smaller towns or rural areas. The heartland?
Whereas South Indian cinema seems to be tapping right into that.
It feels that way. They're offering heroes and stories that a much wider, more diverse group of people can actually relate to, can see themselves in.
And it's showing up in who's going back to the cinemas post-pandemic, right?
Yeah,
South Indian blockbusters really pulled people back.
they did. While Bollywood has struggled more consistently to fill those seats, it suggests audiences are making very conscious choices with their time and money.
And they can tell when something feels forced, can't they? Like the cultural elements in Singham, again feeling awkward.
Exactly. While the same kind of blend in Kalki felt epic and natural, it's like one respects the audience's intelligence and the other maybe underestimates it sometimes.
There was also that mention of boycott calls impacting some films.
Yeah, that came up. Though it seems like a really strong story, like Brahma Shastra can push through that noise.
Right.
But films seen as having, a heavy-handed political agenda, those seem to turn audiences off. Films like Accident, Conspiracy, Gadra, Swatantra Veer, Savarkar were mentioned.
So the lesson there is maybe focus on stories that bring people together, not push them apart.
That seems to be the takeaway. Films like La Pata Ladies or Maidan, which did well, especially on streaming, seem to resonate more broadly.
Okay, so this is the big question then. Facing all this,
Yeah.
can Bollywood bounce back? Is it over?
Oh, I don't think the material suggests it's over at all, but significant change. Absolutely necessary. It feels like a real crossroads moment.
So what's the path forward? Less sequels, more original ideas.
That feels crucial. Moving past the endless Dabang 7 cycle and focusing on fresh narratives. We saw examples like Stree 2, that horror comedy set in the heartland.
Yeah, I did well.
Or that gritty thriller Kill. They show Bollywood can still connect powerfully when it offers something new and does it well.
And collaboration seems key too, right? Working with talent from the South.
Definitely. Learning from them, partnering with directors, writers, it could bring in fresh energy, new perspectives. Imagine blending that Southern scale with Bollywood's potential for emotional storytelling.
That could be amazing. Like a Kannada director doing a Hindi thriller or a Malayalam writer on a Bollywood rom-com. Real pan-Indian epics.
The potential's huge. And streaming offers a vital space for that kind of experimentation too, doesn't it?
Yeah, with 150 million subscribers projected for 2025. That's a massive audience to try new things with, new faces, daring stories, without that immediate box office pressure.
But maybe the most fundamental change needed is fixing that financial model we talked about.
The star fees taking up the whole budget.
Yeah, that system just seems unsustainable if you want quality films. Moving towards more of a revenue-sharing model, like those gross points, could make a huge difference.
So everyone's invested in the film actually succeeding.
Exactly. Making sure the film itself has the resources it needs, not just treating it as an ATM for the biggest stars.
And maybe most importantly, just listening. Really listening to the audience.
Absolutely. India is massive, incredibly diverse, 1.46 billion people by 2025. Huge number of young people. They're hungry for stories that reflect their lives, their world.
Which Sound Cinema seems to be doing better right now, making films for different regions, different cultures.
Yeah. Bollywood needs to kind of step outside its comfort zone, maybe that perceived ivory tower, and tell stories that connect with the real breadth of India.
So it's clear there are big challenges. But it doesn't sound like Bollywood is, down for the count.
Not at all. The industry's been through tough times before piracy, the pandemic, and it's always adapted. There's resilience there.
And we are seeing films that show the creative spark is still there. Plus, streaming is a huge opportunity.
And the audience is definitely there. That massive young population, they want great Hindi cinema to get behind.
So maybe the success of South Indian films isn't so much a threat, but more like a necessary wake-up call.
I think that's a great way to put it. A wake-up call, and maybe even a source of inspiration. There are real lessons there about storytelling, production, audience connection.
Imagine if Bollywood could really blend all those strengths.
Yeah.
The energy of Tollywood, the grounded stories of Kollywood, the heart of Mollywood.
The potential is incredible, isn't it? But it takes courage, a new vision, and being willing to actually leave some of the old ways behind.
Because Bollywood is important, right? It employs millions. It's a huge part of India's cultural identity. It's too big to just fade, but it has to change.
It really does. So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with, something to chew on.
Okay.
If Bollywood truly embraces risk, if it really starts listening deeply to all the diverse voices across India, and if it genuinely collaborates across industries, what kind of amazing, unexpected, truly resonant stories might come next? Stories we haven't even thought of yet.
That's actually, yeah, that's a pretty hopeful note to end on for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.